fix that.
There we go. So you have to start all over again.
All right. Okay. I did it really fast. So, sorry about that for those of you online. Anyway, it's wonderful to be here and yeah, to just feel being a part of this community. Always grateful to be welcomed in because you are keeping the Dharma alive. So I think the Dharma is very beautiful. So then it makes me happy when I get to be with people who are keeping it alive. It's pretty simple. So today I'm going to talk a bit about the Purifying Practice Sutra, which is a chapter in the Flower Ornament Sutra. And I have a new book called Inside the Flower Garland Sutra. And yesterday I was kind of talking about the general themes of that text. And today I'll be narrowing on a very specific part of it. And well, we'll just say, like, if you do want a book, I will sign them. I think it's fun to sign books. So, I'm going to give some very brief background for those of you yesterday. This will be like, oh, you just ignore me. No, just say it in unison with me. Anyway, so the Avatamsaka Sutra or Flower Garland Sutra, Huayan Sutra, Huayan Jing, those are names in various languages, is very influential Buddhist texts from the middle of the first millennium Common Era. So about 1,500 years ago, it was compiled from a bunch of different texts. I've been talking about it a lot because I think the themes are really timely. So some of the central themes of the text are celebrating abundance and sensual experience, celebrating beauty. So that's one of the themes. Social engagement is one of the themes. So Buddhist practice as a thing which is something done in a social context that is about social transformation and that explores social transformation through relationship. And another big theme is diversity of people, needs, practices, and capacities. So really understanding that every person comes to the world with their own conditioning. They have their own capacities for engaging in liberation. They have their own way of viewing the world, and they have their own special ways in which they can practice and help us all get free from suffering. So these are just kind of overlying themes. The book is very long. It's a massive text. When I brought it here, I borrowed Garrett's copy because I forgot to, well, I didn't forget to bring mine. I couldn't, they won't let you bring it through airport security because it's too big. It's like they're afraid it will sink the plane. And anyway, so I just brought it so I can work on my forearm strength here during the talk. Anyway, so it's quite a tome. And there are a couple sections that are, great entrance points for people who are interested in just exploring it because it in itself is kind of daunting. It kind of is an understatement. But the Purifying Practice Sutra is what I'll be talking about today. There are 39 chapters in the text, and it's one of the most influential, along with the last chapter, which is called the Gandavyuha, and the 10 Stages Sutra, which is another one. So Purifying Practice is pretty short. It's about 20 pages long. It basically just starts I don't even remember, some really important bodhisattva asked some Buddha or bodhisattva. Sorry, I should know their names, but there are so many thousands of Buddhas and bodhisattvas in this text. They all qualify. So he just says, how do you do liberation? And then they ask that question in a lot of different ways because the style of the text is to ask things in a lot of ways. And then you get a series of verses. So the body of the Purifying Practice Sutra, Purifying Practice chapter, is little 4-line verses, each one of which suggests that what a bodhisattva does is while they're doing a particular thing, they wish that everyone be free from suffering. And the particular activities are paired with usually kind of particular wishes. But the basic idea is that every single thing you do, if you read it, it's so expansive and particular in the things that you would do that you can start to see that everything that you do could be a moment where you can wish that everyone be free from suffering. And that means that you begin to do that thing you are doing because you want people to be free. And this is a basic approach that infuses the tradition in which I'm trained, Soto Zen, and this practice community has a lot of connection to Soto Zen. which I'll talk about a little bit more. But you have refuge vows in your chant book that come directly from the Purifying Practices Sutra. And so there's things that you chant regularly here that are just out of this text. Also, the acknowledgement of karma that we chanted earlier is from this text. So the text is giant, and then people have found like 4 lines of it and then made it like a part of their daily practice. And that's been happening for 1,500 years. I'm just going to read you a few examples from the text. Okay. There we go. Bodhisattvas at home should wish that all beings realize the nature of home is empty and escape its pressures. While serving their parents, they should wish that all beings serve the Buddha, protecting and nourishing everyone. While with their spouses and children, they should wish that all beings be impartial toward everyone and forever give up attachment. When attaining their desires, they should wish that all beings pull out the arrow of lust and realize ultimate peace. On festive occasions, they should wish that all beings enjoy themselves with truth and realize amusement is not real. So that's a few examples. I think I wanted to skip down and read a couple others. Oh, here we go. So these are the verses that are used in Soto Zen temples for taking refuge. And you have a version, the translation is slightly different in your book. It's further back in your chant book. Taking refuge in the Buddha, they should wish that all beings continue the lineage of Buddhas conceiving the unexcelled aspiration. Taking refuge in the teaching, they should wish that all beings enter deeply into the scriptures and their wisdom be as deep as the ocean. Taking refuge in the community, they should wish that all beings order the community and become free from obstruction. So the translations are fairly different than the ones in your book, but it's coming from the same thing. When practicing meditation, they should wish that all beings see truth as it is and be forever free from opposition and contention. When uncrossing their legs, they should wish that all beings observe that all acts and all things return to dispersal and extinction. When lowering their feet and resting, they should wish that all beings attain liberation of mind, resting at peace, unstirred. When raising the legs, they should wish that all beings leave the sea of birth and death and fulfill all good qualities. So we have very general things like just being at home. And then we start to get into when you're moving your foot, when you're putting your foot down, when you're putting a garment on, when you're taking a garment off, when you're brushing your teeth, when you're using the toilet. And in Soto Zen temples, it's common to have these gathas actually posted in like the bathroom. So we don't have them anymore, but our temple, when I first arrived, in the bathroom, you'd walk in and there was a thing that said, when brushing the teeth, I vow with all beings to clean away all harms. And another one that said, when shaving the face, I vow with all beings to cut off all my silly vanity. So these are used very frequently in many contexts, but certainly in the Soto Zen tradition where I'm trained. So sometimes people go, how could I remember all that? And I'm not asking you to remember all that, so don't worry. It is possible that you might find that having a gata for something is really helpful. Like when I walk into this meeting room, may all beings be free from suffering and no one yell at anyone else. Or whatever, so you can find ways because we need they're reminders. I mean, it would be wonderful if you could just say, everyone manifest infinite and boundless compassion all the time. And you'd be like, oh, I'll do that. Great. And then you just do it. That would be wonderful. I don't think it works that way. I don't know. I think it was Jesus Christ said, just love one another. And I'm not sure that exactly manifested completely for everyone all the time. So we need reminders. And these are just reminders. when we do the service here, it's a reminder. So in the sutra itself, the gathas they're like wishes. So it says like when putting down the feet, one should wish that all beings be free in how they move. I don't actually remember the exact ones, but there's this wish. So it's like this action, there's the wish, there's the universality for it. So it's for everyone. And then it's just something that's about being free from suffering, right? So there's a formula. Um, these start to morph in many traditions, particularly Zen traditions. So instead of a wish, you get a vow. So the version of this refuge vow in here is a little different. In the refuge vow in this text, it says we're going to wish that everyone find harmony in the community. But when we do the refuge in Sangha in the Soto Zen tradition, we say, I take refuge in Sangha, may all living beings. Oh, no, these are not vows. So I have to go to something else. I'm just going from memory here. Those we do keep the wish, but in many other cases, we'll switch it. So instead of wishing, you're vowing to actually enact or create the condition that you would like to see in the world. So, um, oh, here's one from Robert Aiken, who's a contemporary Zen teacher. He writes, when I haven't got time, that's something some of you may be able to identify with. When I haven't got time, I vow with all beings to light incense and making my bows touch the place of no time. When I haven't got time, I vow with all beings to light incense and making my bows touch the place of no time. So Thich Nhat Hanh uses lots of these gathas. So Thich Nhat Hanh really draws from this Huayan teaching, this whole body of literature, and this particular chapter quite a bit. So there's lots of gathas, which just means short verses in the um, uh, Plum Village tradition. So here's one. He writes, entering the meditation room, I see my true mind. I vow that once I sit down, all disturbances will stop. Man, that's a high bar. All right. Well, I mean, why not? So these tend to have a really impossible, almost unimaginable, inconceivable level of aspiration because human beings are so, and this is a quality of this text in general. The degree to which we are limited by our limited views is, I cannot comprehend it. I'm too limited to know how limited I am. And these texts and many other Buddhist texts are really trying to just like sort of get us to shift and be like, wow, what is imaginable is beyond what I can imagine. Like what is possible is so far beyond. I know, like right now, I went to an event. Oh, I'm going to complain about an event. Is that appropriate? Don't tell me. So I went to an event the other night. It was about, dealing with uncertain times. And one of the speakers was kind of like talking about how we just, it's so hard. We just need to get back to our democracy and get back to good old America the Beautiful. And I was like, no. I I mean, there are wonderful things. I mean, I'm very grateful to live here and to live in the world with all the wonderful people, but there's been so much harm. There's harm all over the world. And certainly, the United States as a nation has done immense harm. So the idea that we should be going back is not the calling here. It's like, what is possible? What wonders beyond what we have imagined are possible? And so these are trying to say, like, oh yeah, entering the meditation room, I see my true mind. I I vow that once I sit down, all disturbances will stop. Instead of being like, oh, I'm gonna sit down, I'm just gonna deal with this an ornery mind, or oh, another sitting. Just go, all right, right now, I'm doing it. It's going beyond your limited view. So this is a very common characteristic of these verses. Thich Nhat Hanh, one of his most famous gathas, I know quite a few people who do this regularly. He says, waking up this morning, I smile. Yeah, so a particular activity. 24 brand new hours are before me. I vow to live fully in each moment and to look at beings with the eyes of compassion. So this is one that's not in the purifying practice of sutra, but it has all the characteristics that he has adopted. So wishing in Japan, there's like this in Japanese Buddhism, there's enthusiasm for investigating the relationship between what they call self and other power. As someone brought up yesterday. And, a wish has this kind of other power flavor. It's like, may all beings be free. I'm not trying to do that. All I'm doing is hoping that it may come to be. Some other conditions may create that which we aspire to. And like if you've ever done loving kindness practice where you're like, may you be happy, may you be healthy, may you be safe. That has this other power flavor because we're not saying, I'm going to help everyone be happy. You just wish it. So opens the heart and opens to a sense of like it's beyond. When we take the vow has a much more self-power flavor. If I say, waking up this morning, I smile, 24 brand new hours are before me. I vow to live fully in this moment and to look at beings with the eyes of compassion. It just feels different. Um, And that's just kind of interesting to notice how these things feel for us. How does it feel to make it a vow? How does it feel to just wish that it may be true? Ultimately, I will say, where does self or other power come from? Have a look. So oftentimes in our kind of root practice, we don't, I suspect many of you you're not using, some of you may be using some of these verses, some are not. But like in a session at our Zen Center, we don't use them very much. We use them during services. We used to have them up in the bathrooms. Um, but generally we don't use them. And the idea is the quality that they are intended to evoke, we are evoking together and internally. That is to say, you walk in the door to this place and you walk in the door and you walk in the door so everyone can be free from suffering. And you put your shoes in the rack and you put your shoes in the rack so that everyone can be free from suffering. And then you sit down on the cushion so everyone can be free from suffering. And then you sit still and practice contemplation so everyone can be free from, you stand up. And this you might be like, well, one of the great things that happened here is you go, well, how the heck does putting my shoes in the rack help everyone be free from suffering? Enjoy the question, first of all. But if you begin to have that quality of heart, it will change how you do what you do. It will change how you feel. It will change how you feel about yourself, about other people, and it will change everything because the Avatamsaka is based in the idea that everything is always dependent on everything else. So this comes back to this central theme of Mahayana Buddhism that everything matters for everyone. Certainly in all Buddhism, the idea is that every single moment of consciousness matters and has impact. But here there's an emphasis on how it is collectively important, how the liberation that is possible can only be collective, and how what we are doing is always going into the collective. It's part of systems and patterns far beyond our knowing, but not beyond our impact and agency. Ooh, here's a nice one from Robert Aiken. When the traffic is bumper to bumper, I vow with all beings to move when the world starts moving and rest when it pauses again. Ah, okay. So let's see. I just want to read a couple more of these, just so this is not too abstract. Seeing a group of people, they should wish that all beings expound the most profound teaching and all be harmoniously united. If they see a big tree, they should wish that all beings divorce egotistic contentiousness and be free of anger and resentment. If they see a grove of trees, they should wish that all beings be worthy of the respect of celestial deities and humans. If they see high mountains, they should wish that all beings, roots of goodness, stand out and their peak reach beyond anyone's reach. If they see thorny trees, they should wish that all beings may quickly cut away the thorns of the three poisons. So we get particular activities, moments of encounter with the world. So, like when you see a particular thing, you can have this vow. So, it's like just all these reminders to like every moment is an opportunity where we can meet it with this liberative quality of heart. So this ties in with one of the themes of the retreat yesterday, which is diversity of practice. So the thing is, we can bring our practice anywhere. And so, sometimes people will say, they'll come, I'm a Zen teacher, so people talk to me about their practice, and they'll come to the Zen center and they'll be like, oh, I haven't really been able to practice lately. And then I'm like, ooh, So I would say my definition of practice is being alive. So what you are doing is practicing. You're doing something, which is one of the meanings of practice, and you are creating what the world will be. This is the basic idea of karma that is then expanded into the collectivity by this kind of more collective view of this sutra. So we're the ones playing the scales that will make the music of the world. So what is the scale you're playing? It's worth thinking about. So anyway, that means everything can be the kind of practice that is actually liberative and helps us be free together. So this is just like, I don't know, some of you may like get to have the opportunity to extract data from spreadsheets. Wonderful. You can do that for the liberation of all beings. I had a friend who was very devoted to practice, and she was kind of dejected because she had a job. She was like doing payroll for a really big corporation. It just seemed like she didn't like it. And then one of the people at the payroll said, you understand that everyone at the company wants to get paid, and you're the one who makes that happen, right? And that was the thing that allowed her to shift and realize that what she's doing matters. And then she can focus on doing it in a way that is good for her well being, good for the people on her team. At the same time, if you're, no offense, but if you're like doing payroll for a defense contractor, you know, that is a little different impact than if you're doing payroll for a company that's advocating for like a healthy climate or like a anti-racist society, right? So like we can continually refine how we manifest our lives. So I just want to tell this story briefly. When I was working for a couple of years, we were trying to stop the construction of a pipeline that was running from Canada into Minnesota to take tar sands oil through a bunch of Anishinaabe land. So it was like violating a bunch of treaty rights. It was going to go underneath the Mississippi 3 times. Pipelines, they all leak, whatever they tell you. And also, I think a lot of people just think massive fossil fuel projects are not like they're not really appropriate in a time of climate crisis. So I was like following or in solidarity with a bunch of indigenous women who are leading a opposition to the construction of this pipeline. And the day we did the biggest action that we had, it was like several thousand people. We're going to do a bunch of nonviolent direct action. And we had like a multi-faith kind of centering. And this woman, great grandmother Mary Lyons, got up at the beginning and she just exhorted us, to go out and do this. And she said, I hope you will show up in a good way. And I've heard this so many times from indigenous elders in my area, show up in a good way. That is to say, whatever you're doing, do it in a way that really understands that everyone is your family. Not just everyone, but everything is your family. And really embody that. And if you like to read magazine articles, I wrote an article about that work for Lions Roar magazine, and there's some pretty cool people that I talk about in it. It's called Show Up in a Good Way. So anyway, I'm going to say a few more things about this. Really at the heart of what the sutra is about is generating bodhicitta, which means like a heart of awakening or a mind of awakening. And bodhicitta is like a huge theme, so we could like do, a year on bodhicitta. So I'm going to talk about it for a very particular way, which is just the aspiration, the heartfelt aspiration that everyone be free from suffering. And this is something that I suspect everyone's felt to some degree, but usually most of us, there are a few people who are like, yeah, I I don't know if I want them to be free from suffering. Or maybe you know what I mean? Like, so we don't necessarily dwell in bodhicitta all the time, but we can continually turn towards it and develop it and make space for it to be here. And so these verses are predominantly about that. So it's just like you start to be like, I can't tell you how many times I've been like, I don't really know how brushing my teeth can be like for the liberation of all beings, but I still am just making that vow. And actually being confused by it helps. So I did a 30-day solo retreat at one point, and it just it came up for me. A rove, a row, right? Anyway, it showed up. Um, it showed up in a good way. I just came into my heart like because I had gone away. I got to have all this time. I was in a wilderness on my own. So it was very beautiful and nice for me. I mean, it was hard. It was strenuous, but just kept thinking like, how is this bodhisattva activity? How is this bodhisattva activity? And I thankfully have not arrived at an answer. I'm still interested in the question of like right now, if bodhisattva activity is beyond the self, beyond something you can do because there's no you to do it, how can this moment be the activity of liberation beyond all my ideas? This is the space of mystery that I think these verses can invite us into. But I will say a few other great ways to generate bodhicitta. The classic way from early Buddhism is to look directly at suffering. It brings to mind the great Cornel West. I never know if he wrote it or said it because he's like a kind of an oral transmission person, but he said, "You must let suffering speak if you want to hear the truth." And you couldn't get closer to this root Buddhist idea that the encounter of the truth, which is liberation and truth, are identical in Buddhism. You have to be able to see suffering and be called to heal, not run away from it. So this direct looking at suffering, very powerful way to generate bodhicitta. And if you look at these verses, often they have a little part that acknowledges that there's anger, there's resentment. Training the mind, another great way to do this. So these verses are about training the mind. And like I say, I don't think anyone here is probably going to go home and memorize the Purifying Practice Sutra and then do every time you see a thorny tree, remember, it's probably not going to happen. That's okay. I'm interested in the spirit of it. How can you make some little gestures so that in daily points in your life, you recall the aspiration that we can all get free? The Dhammapada, the earliest layer of teaching, says, as an archer aims their arrows, the wise aim their restless thoughts. So the way we think does matter. We have a lot of practice to just let go of thinking, but most people I know, there's thoughts in their mind a good a very substantial part of their waking hours. And so, yeah, it's good to have those thoughts be one that are beautiful and liberative and kind. One of the most common practices for generating bodhicitta is just giving, dana. We just give, and the act of giving helps us see how deeply we are to other people, and helps us be free of our clinging. And these real basic meditation practices, I don't know what your meditation practice is because I just got here. But we use pretty simple ones where I come from. It's just sitting, knowing the body, knowing the breath, hearing, seeing, smelling, tasting, being aware of emotions, being aware of thoughts. And here, there are many different kinds of practice, but this style of practice, we just open the hand of thought. So the part of the mind that's dividing things up, trying to figure things out, that is always limiting things, gets soft or takes a break. And then there's some space for like deep realization of our intimacy, our inalienable connection. And that is a place where bodhicitta can very naturally arise. Okay. Well, thank you for listening to this talk. And I think it's nice to hear other voices. So I'm going to invite folks to say things. You can ask questions. You can have reflections. It's fun to hear a lot of people. So if you have a reflection, it's nice if it's kind of short or compact. And the other thing is, it's nice if everyone can hear you. So I invite you to speak
into this microphone.
Oh, dang. Come on. We got technology.
I invite you to stop recording.
Okay, hold up.
Just push the big square button at the top, wave it around a little bit, and touch square button.